Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. Traditional cultural landscapes have high natural and cultural values. Why? Because they appeared as a co-evolution between the local ecosystems and the local society, the local communities. This co-evolution means that from both sides there is a kind of convergence toward each other, meaning that people are harmonized to the dynamic and processes of nature. This harmonization means that the way they use the land, the rules they make for this, the way how they take care and they assess the ecosystems and they take care of them, but also the way how the nature is present in the symbols used every day by the local communities, including in religious manifestation. So in one hand, this coevolution means that nature is embedding in people, but people are also embedding in nature, and we can measure on ecosystems the signs of human activities. Several species, such as the corncrake or the yellow-bellied toad, or several tens of species which are protected or can be protected, and habitats are strongly dependent on certain type of land uses, or broadly speaking, land stewardship. So that understanding species-rich and value-rich cultural landscapes requires a special holistic approach. And in the following, I will present our concept in understanding the biocultural values of the ancient wood pastures of Transylvania. Ancient wood pastures can be considered archetypical examples of social ecological systems which co-evolved and were tightly connected through a long period of time, despite the fact that nowadays we can measure some level of disconnection and the consequences of this. But still, wood pastures of Transylvania remain a good arena for such understandings. The goal of this material is to inspire you in the case that you would like to employ similar understanding and project to your landscapes, which can be urban landscape, rural landscape, or other types of human-shaped landscapes where human values but also natural values are present. You may find it inspiring. In our project, which was implemented in the last 2 years and which was funded by the Deutsche Bundesstiftung Umwelt in collaboration with colleagues from Trier University of Applied Sciences and especially Mr. Frank Wagner. So we developed a holistic way to assess Transylvanian wood pastures, and this was our job in the past 2 years. While our papers and manuscripts are appearing or are submitted, I will present you the concept we have employed, so that we started with the fact that, with the realization that wood pastures cannot be understood only as ecosystems nor only as social systems. They are both. They are somehow landscape or social ecological interface where several things are happening which are partly determined by a complicated ecology, but partly are determined by human use and social phenomena. So what we did is that we had 3 big research components. And the 3 big research components were embedded in a transdisciplinary framework or approach. So that the first big research component targeted the wood pastures. So we did comprehensive walks across the whole surface of 110 wood pastures and recorded the manifestations, natural and cultural, in this wood pasture. So let's call these forms structures. These forms and structures are indicating, till a point, the value of the wood pasture for nature or different species, but also the human activities in this. For example, forms and structures, large old trees. We take trees with at least 5-meter trunk circumference. That means hollowing tree, that means dead wood, that means aging bark. That can be a proxy for high biodiversity, and indeed, studies show that large old trees are keystone structures in ecosystems. Then, so structure from nature's side. Also, wetlands of all kinds of types, or vegetation patches which are distinct and can have high ecological relevance. Also, structures we considered human-built structures, like little constructions for permanent or temporary stay, little fences, traditional modern fences. We go up to the electric fences. Different structures, for example, for gas extraction, if they position there, or importantly, fountains or drinking facilities for livestock. Structures are important manifestations because through them we have a first genuine glimpse into what is happening in that system. Of course, considering the structures implies assumptions, and we did our job by researching the scientific literature in this respect. For example, a special issue in biological conservation, I think 2017, maybe 16, addressed the so-called small natural features with high ecological values. Other paper in biological reviews highlighted how small features, constructed features, are important for biodiversity. So we did this work before selecting the forms and structures we use. But we did another thing. As a preliminary list, after we had the preliminary list based on our deep experience on wood pastures, the literature, and also the project goals, we go to the local communities, meaning at that time 17 people, now there are 25, and is increasing, and validated them. So here is the list. Let's discuss what you would add. So through this consultation, interesting opinions came, or suggestions we didn't thought about them. Some suggested, for example, signs of touristic activity. Okay, because if there are signs, that means that people are valuing the place for something, and they maybe proudly show that. Or so several other interesting things came out by talking with people. We also made a pilot study on 10 wood pastures to see if the list is okay. And as a matter of detail and fun, even with the best first list and validated list of variables, so we named all the possible structures we can find, and we just ticked them and added some abundance as how many if was needed. We still find interesting surprises because one cannot know everything. So we always recorded some little things about which we didn't expect. These forms and structures were important because through them we can understand if the wood pastures are, how modern they are. The wood pastures which have modern buildings, electric fences, or even houses expanding on them. That can show that, yes, and they have also ancient trees. That can show that an ancient wood pasture is turning into some modern human use arena. But This kind of wood pastures were very rare in our sample. Most of the wood pastures have few modern signs, structures, and I would like to highlight the electric fences. Over 30% of the wood pastures had them, and this is new. Surveys before 2016 didn't detect them, so most likely in the next 10 years, everything will be fenced, or large wood pasture surfaces will be fenced. And to come back to the meaning of the structures, if everything is fenced, then, and we know from our previous research that wood pastures are kind of kitchens for the bears. Imagine that the bears are coming out and seeing these beautiful arenas with shrubs, trees, and ant hills and mushrooms, a lot of fruits in the autumn. They like to be there, but if it is fenced, the animals are going and searching for food somewhere else, most typically being pushed between the people. So yes, electric fences will possibly show an increasing prevalence in the next 10 years, and this and other challenges can come out from fencification of our ancient systems, farming systems. Wood pastures are special because they developed as open social ecological systems. They were communal lands, so people and nature can go up and down in different periods of the year and day freely. Being fenced, this is stopped. An ancient entitlement, if I can formulate like that, is stopped. The second group of variables were more required more creativity. We call them processes and practices. Well, tightly connected to the forms and structures, isn't it? Since processes highlight that something is dynamic and changing. Okay, from nature's side, process can be the succession toward forest after abandoning the grazing and pasture clearing. Hornbeam crops establish, spread, grow. That is a process. Okay. But human-related processes are the practices, we say the practices, grazing with different livestock types, or draining the land, so the drainage ditches, we put them here. The presence of ancient coppices and pollards and other culturally modified trees are indicating the presence of these practices in the past. Of course, the processes are manifesting to us some of them in the form of structures. The point is that the two are overlapped, and this is your choice how you box them or categorize them. The point is to think about them. Process is also, for example, the fencing, but we use the fences as forms and structures. Processes are the use of sheepdogs to guard the livestock. Process is also if there are modern tractors. We also recorded processes, for example, situations when clear mechanization is present. That's a practice. Removing ant hills, taking out the stumps, the tree stumps from the soil with heavy machineries, burning the land, or even plowing. This can be practices. So please note the overlap, and let's jump to the next category of variables. So we go out in the field, and in each wood pasture, such as what you see here, we recorded this. Yes. And well, in the third level, we go to the local community, and we're interested in stories and memories. and local knowledge types related to the wood pasture. Basically, I also link these dimensions. Why? Because the topics for discussion with the local communities were inspired from our field work. We generated several pictures through our field work and selected the most archetypical ones and go to the local communities with them. This is called photo elicitation to discuss about the wood pasture. The local communities were selected for this focus group discussions and interviews in all three cultural regions what we surveyed. So in the Székely area, in the Saxon area, and around Cluj. The topics what we discussed involved the perception of the local people engaged in the focus group exercises or interviews, their perception about how the community, local community and wood pasture relationship changed in time and why, and also what kind of hopes they see, positive futures for this system. We learned a lot from discussing with the local community members. They were farmers mostly and local wise people who really had genuine knowledge about the wood pasture. Priests, foresters, even hunters, or NGO people, civil society representatives, touristic company representatives interested in ecotourism, and so on. So that what we learned is that the wood pastures indeed are changing and their quality is changing. These changes are partly and increasingly, by the way, influenced by drought. People started to talk about drought, but also because of the lack of local demand for stewarding these systems. People's attention is going toward the cities, and they forget to see the beauties what they have. The ownership is changing from a communal to individually owned lands. Small farmers who are managing the wood pasture feel social marginalization, cultural marginalization, lack of economic competitiveness, comparing the large industrial farmers. This is important when they are trying to sell their products and they don't receive the spaces in the big markets. So the memories will give that depth to the so-called superficial variables we recorded. And we didn't stop here. We added a fourth type of activity, visions, positive scenarios, positive visions for the wood pastures. And somehow I represent this like all together. What that means, that based on 2 years of intense work along this, we distilled some take-home messages and then selected people, around 10 people participating in the interviews. By the way, as a detail, there were over 50 people here, but also 10 people who were not present in the interview but interested in the wood pasture, so that bring together for the 2-day workshop about wood pasture futures around 23 people. And they worked in little groups to envision positive futures, like little groups, meaning 4 people, 5 pair groups, 4 groups. And they come out with interesting positive states of the wood pastures. And we are now analyzing, and it is remarkable to see that what people see in the future, in the next 20 years, as positive features of the wood pastures are already here, both in the wood pastures, both in the mind of people. So basically, we didn't have to work to bring back ancient trees, to bring back biodiversity and large carnivores and so on, to bring back the local ecological knowledge. They are here. We have to work to keep them and to find ways while keeping them to allow also the local aspirations, economic and cultural aspirations, to be fulfilled. And this is a beautiful challenge. So this is our wood pasture assessment approach. I hope you find it useful. And good luck with your future projects.